Hey guys, let's talk a little bit about Halloween. As you know, I have two kids and we've been doing low carb or high fat since 2013. So my daughter, who was 10 when we first started low carb or keto, is now 16. So she no longer trick-or-treats, but we had a lot of years there where we were trick-or-treating or where we were facing Halloween together. And Halloween is pretty much a candy-centric holiday. Everybody goes trick-or-treating or they give out candy. So what do you do when your child needs to do a low carb or ketogenic diet for metabolic reasons? If your child's metabolically healthy, then they can probably have some candy. It's probably not such a big deal. But what if your child really needs to stay on plan because your child's diabetic or has autism or has epilepsy or something like that? Well, one of the first things that we do in our family is really try to empower the kids, is talk to them in advance about the holiday. For Grace especially, we would talk about, okay, friends are coming over, we're going out as a group, and the kids would go trick-or-treating and they'd literally have this huge pillowcase full of candy. So now Grace is not diabetic or she doesn't have any of those medical conditions. So for the first year, we did not want to tell her, you can't have this. In fact, I've never told her that. We'll have conversations about, well, here's the carb count. So what we did in that very first year, she was still kind of getting used to everything, is she picked out 4 pieces of candy, her favorites. And I don't think that's unreasonable for any child, whether you're keto or not, is putting a limitation on it, because who wants to come home with, trick-or-treaters who are feeling sick because they've overloaded on sugar. But we had that 4 pieces of candy. And whenever they came back from trick-or-treating, they took their haul and they spread it out, and Grace picked out what she wanted, and the rest of it she gave to Jonathan, and which worked out beautifully. And what we also let her do, we didn't make her give any of this away. She picked out her favorites, she gave what she didn't like to her brother, and she kept the rest. And then we would let her, on the days that she asked, that she wanted to, she could pick out 1 or 2 pieces every day. I think it was 1 piece that she just had, and she might have it at dinner time or something. And that was kind of her thing until, eventually the whole idea that she could have it kind of wore off and she didn't want it. And so we ended up throwing it away. In the subsequent years, what she'd do is if they went to her house and let's say her friend was excited, or a friend in the group was like, oh, wow, we got Reese cups. Grace would say, oh, you can have mine. I don't care for those. Or, hey, or just simply, do you want mine? And so she gave away a lot of the candy as she was trick-or-treating. Again, I think we gave her that option that night if she wanted to eat up to 4 pieces. And I don't think she did, because she soon figured out that when she ate those things, she can feel her blood sugar rise and she doesn't feel good. But I think the important thing there is really empowering the kid, because what if you have a child who's not like Grace? You have a child like Jonathan who's like, hey, the candy's coming, what do I do? I think the important thing there, and it depends on the child's age, but is having those conversations about, we're going to have a lot of sugar and we don't think it's necessarily good for you, or we're concerned that it might make you feel bad because you're not used to eating sugar. But working with the child to set those boundaries is all about empowering them. Like I said, I don't tell my children, even now with Jonathan going keto, we were out to breakfast. He said, Mom, the biscuits and pancakes here look good. And I said, do you want some? And he looked at me like I was crazy. And he's like, no, I don't want any. And I said, well, it's your choice. And David echoed the same thing. This is entirely up to you. And of course, he chose not to. But there's a very different piece to saying to the kid, you can't have that. Sorry, I know you want biscuits and pancakes, but you can't have them. It's very different than saying, do you want them? And since this has happened too with other things, Jonathan will say, Mom, can I have a, whatever? And I'll say, well, let's look at the carb count on it. And Jonathan does eat a little higher. He's not keto, he's more low carb. Other thing to do is to help the kids set boundaries, but think about what you can do besides candy. Sometimes we overemphasize the trick-or-treating and getting the candy, and certainly if their friends are going, they may want to go with that. But making kind of a celebration of the holiday, of the process of the holiday, really having fun carving the pumpkins, having fun planning the costumes. And my children are notorious for, Mom, I'm not dressing up this year. And then at the last minute, literally hours before trick-or-treat time, hey, Mom, I want to be Einstein, which was Jonathan one year, and I had to run out and find a lab coat in a child size. But anyway, making that kind of fun, going through that whole process of building the costume with them. And we love homemade costumes at our house. We tend to make them rather than buy them. And then, like I said, the whole process of the pumpkin. You can carve pumpkins and wait for trick-or-treaters. And that's what we're doing this year. The kids are 13 and 16, so they're not going trick-or-treating, but we're excited about having the trick-or-treaters at our house and looking for costumes. And we do have candy to hand out. We also spend time before we go trick-or-treating when the kids are younger. I'd always make sure they were well fed, because if you take them trick-or-treating and they're hungry, they're naturally going to want that candy. And so I'll make a pot of chili, and I'll link to my chili recipe. It's up on my website. If you have my books, it's also in Keto Living Day by Day. It's a 3-meat chili, so you won't miss the beans at all. And my kids love that chili, even though kids can be, especially Jonathan, can be a really super picky eater. But make that big bowl of chili. It's super easy to make. You can make it the night before or the morning of, throw everything in the crock pot, let it go, and then by the time you get home, get everybody costumed up and ready to head out the door. The chili's ready and it's hot and it's hearty and filling, and that also will help them to keep from indulging so much in the candy. So let's say you go trick-or-treating, come back, the kids got, a pillowcase full of candy. What do you do with it? Well, like I said, generally my kids would give it away, and their friends love that. No friend is like, are you crazy? They're like, you don't want the Butterfinger? I'll take it. And so they give it away. Another thing that you can do, and we have not done this, but a lot of the dentists in the area will buy the candy. So you take it, they weigh it, and the kids can get cash for that. And I've always thought that was such a neat thing to do. And then the other thing that we've done with ours is we let them keep it for X amount of time. They quickly lose fascination with it, and we just throw it away. We actually have found bags of Halloween candy as we're getting ready for Christmas, and we throw that away. Another important thing, last tip, that we do is to give our kids other options. So even with Grace in the most recent years, in fact, I'll do it this year, and for David, even my big kid, my husband, they love things like Reese cups. So I make a homemade Reese cup. That recipe is on YouTube. I don't remember if it's in one of the other books or not, but I know it's on YouTube. But we make the Reese cups, and then they can have that. So they're not deprived. They have an option. This year, I've got a pumpkin roll, a low-carb pumpkin roll. I'll be sharing that recipe soon. And so there are just tons of things that they can enjoy so that they're not feeling deprived and they have options. And I think that's really the key to I think that's really the key to long-term success. It's really the key for them feeling empowered and them continuing to make healthy options. They can, or to choose healthy options. They can only choose those healthy options if they have them. And so for me as a mom, I've kind of designated that's one of my top priorities is making sure that my kids have options that they can enjoy. I hope that you and your family have a wonderful, happy, healthy, and safe Halloween.